Friday night service.
Well,
And that's a
That's a good idea.
Saturday morning, because that's
Well,
what my brother and I did.
well-
We're a year apart, and so that's what we did.
That's brilliant.
Well, we'll get it
Because
about
because I
9
went
and
to a
10 years.
traditional Hebrew salon.
That's
I
brilliant.
was
Actually, 9. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
8,
That's
9.
brilliant.
Sorry,
You
8
shall
to 9
remind me
years.
of that in 10 years when I'm worried about it.
You will need not worry, they can have their own moments
There
in
you
the
go.
sun, you know?
And they can share parties.
And they can share a party, totally. It'll be a blowout.
Give your speech.
Mhm.
Joe,
Hmm?
give your speech.
Yeah, I have, I don't even have it. No time for Christ. Right, 'cause he didn't like the food.
Okay, here we go. Fasten your seatbelts. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Welcome. We're so thrilled to be able to be together here. Those of us who are here in the sanctuary and those of us who are joining through the miracle of the internet and technology. Today is the last Shabbat in the Hebrew month of Tishrei. We'll say a little bit more about the coming new month later on. And it is, of course, also the Shabbat on which we will call Jacob Ornstein to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. Jacob, we are thrilled to share today with you and with your family.
Glad to be here.
Friends, before we begin, just a few announcements. Of course, because we are living in the era of COVID, we'll ask you to keep your masks on during the course of the service. If you need to use the washroom and you go through the doors of the lobby, the ushers will direct you on how to get there. I'm going to ask you to do something that I myself find difficult to do, and that is to resist the temptation to sing along. Our music director, Marla Bentley, appearing here on the television, will be doing the singing. If you have to do something, I find it's helpful to hum quietly, and that way you feel as though you're participating, but we understand the problems with singing, and so we'll ask you try not to sing. Those of you who have reading parts who are sitting in the congregation, you'll come to this lectern down here. And we use as our prayer book Mishkan Tefillah, the blue prayer book, and we use primarily the even numbered pages. So if I don't announce the next page, it means to just turn to the next even numbered pages. If we're going to do some other page, I will announce that so that we'll help you make sure that you're in the right place. Our worship is going to begin on page 74 in the blue prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, with the singing of Ma Tovu. We continue on page 75, and we invite Jacob's Uncle Steve to come and read.
May the one whose spirit is within every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bears the burden of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest.
Now we continue on page 88. Susan?
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We continue now on page 106 with Chatzi Kaddish, page 106. Amen. On page 188, 108, we rise for Baruch Hu and turn and face towards Jerusalem. Be seated. Page 110. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, me'ir la'aretz v'ladarim alea berachamim, uftuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit, ma'arabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mala haaretz kinyanecha, תתברך אדוני אלוהינו, על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל נעורי אור שעשית יפה רוח הסלע. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, Have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Having trusted in your great and awesome holiness, we shall celebrate your salvation with joy. We read together, gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly, you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Page 120. For us, this eternal teaching is true and enduring, beloved and precious, awesome, good, and beautiful. The God of the universe is truly our sovereign, the rock of Jacob, our protecting shield. God endures through all generations. God's name persists. God's throne is firm. God's sovereignty and faithfulness last forever. God's words live and endure, faithful and precious for eternity. We join together in reading. From Egypt you redeemed us, freeing us from bondage. For that your beloved sang praise, exalting you. Your dear ones offered hymns, songs, praise, blessing, and thanksgiving to you as sovereign, the living and enduring God, high and exalted, great and awesome. God ever humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the imprisoned, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God, deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moses, Miriam, and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming.
חשש יבכו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ודגל ומחה יחודה בישראל, וגואלים אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We continue with the tefillah on page 126. We rise and turn to face Jerusalem, page 126.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, ומלחסדים טובים וקוני הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, מביא גאולה
sit down. And we continue on page 134. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer in love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants. Pour out your Spirit upon us. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, amachazir shechinato letzion. On page 138 together, we acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hands, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Im Shalom, Tova, Ubracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Ubracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Ubracha, Sim Shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
We turn now in our prayer books to page 245 as we continue with Seder Kriyat Torah, the service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Read.
Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai, your God. And let their children who do not yet know it hear that they too may learn to revere Adonai, your God.
Page 246.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, zeu she'arim Hashem, uzeu Leona, Yaakov melech hakavod, mihu melech hakavod, Adonai Tzvaot, u'melech hakavod.
Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai. So the Mishnah teaches us that Moses received Torah at Sinai and then he passed it on to Joshua. And Joshua in turn gave it to the judges, and the judges taught it to the prophets, and the prophets preached it to the elders. And so it was transmitted down from generation to generation, a precious heritage, from master to disciple, from teachers to students, from parents to children. And so today we add yet one more link in that ongoing chain of tradition. Dan, you take the Torah, give it to Jacob. Dan, take the Torah. Now you read at the bottom.
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its reaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Yamo Yisrael, Kidushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
hold the Torah, that's all. Everybody else can sit down. Friends, as you can see, we're going to be reading from two different Torah scrolls today. From the first one, we read this week's Torah portion, which is Bereshit, the very beginning. This is the first portion of the year according to the Torah reading cycle, which began with the observance last week of Simchat Torah. We are going to be reading from the end of chapter 4 and the beginning of chapter 5 of the book of Genesis. If you happen to be near a copy of the Red Torah commentary and would like to follow along, we're beginning on page 45, Genesis chapter 4, starting with verse 23. For the first Aliyah, we call for the reading of Torah our Director of Congregational Learning, Lori Sagrin, and for the Aliyah, we call Jacob's grandparents, Faye and Marvin Ruback. תעמוד לקריאת התורה לאהבת בת מיכאל ושרה, יעמוד אלימלך בן אברהם וציפורה, תעמוד ציפורה בת אליעזר ורחל, עלייה ראשונה.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nosan lanu es toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
ויאמר למך לנשיו, עדה וצילה, שמען קולי נשל למך, האזנה ואמרתי כי איש הרגתי בפצעי וילד לחבורתי, כי שבעתיים יוקם קין, ולמך 77, וידע אדם עוד את אשתו, ותלד בן ותקרא את שמו סט, כי סט לי אלוהים זרע אחר תחת הבל, כי הרגו קין, ולסט גם הוא יולד בן ויקרא את שמו אנוש, אז הוחל לקרוא בשם אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher nasan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam nata b'salkeinu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Shkoch. For the second Aliyah, we call Lori and Daniel Ornstein. יעמוד יוסף בן אלימלך וציפורה, תעמוד מרים בת שנר מנחם ושושנה, עלייה שנייה. We're now on page 51 in the Torah commentary.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן. זה ספר תולדות אדם. ביום ברו אלוהים אדם, בדמות אלוהים עשה אותו. זכר ונקבה בראם, ויברך אותם, ויקרא את שמם אדם ביום היברם. ויחי אדם 30 ומעט שנה, ויולד בדמותו כצלמו, ויקרא את שמו שת. ויחיו ימי אדם אחרי הולידו את שת 800 שנה, ויולד בנים ובנות. ויהיו כל ימי אדם אשר חי 900 שנה ו30 שנה, וימות.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. For the third Aliyah, we call Michelle Ornstein. תעמוד מרים בת צבי וזיסה רחל, עלייה שלישית.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Haed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'rabanu mikol hamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayishet 5 shanim u'me'at shana v'yoled et Enosh. ויחי שת אחרי הולידו את אנוש 7 שנים ו800 שנה ויולד בנים ובנות ויהיו כל ימי שת 12 שנה ו900 שנה וימות.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'yechei olam atah mitochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. In the midst of our joy of celebrating this Shabbat and our joy of celebrating with Jacob and his family, we take a moment now in the midst of our reading of Torah to acknowledge our awareness that there are some whose joy and whose celebration is diminished due to illness. We mention particularly Karen Perlmutter, Sheldon Cohn, Wayne Silverman, Carrie Bellows, Alan Sporn, Andrew Bider, Yagoda Rushevich, Esther Mendelson, Francis Twarog, Ronald James Sullivan, Dennis Gelbart, Cassandra Grady, Seema Tolchinsky, Karen Zandy, Jason Edward Zimmerman, Sandy Rubin, Jonathan Raven, Chana Devora Bat Ita, Clayton Isbitz, Richard Aarons, Chana Fagel Bat Yenta, Asher Gedalia Ben Malka, Werner Hyman. To these thus mentioned, we think also of others of whom we know who are in need of healing, whether healing of body or healing of spirit, and we pray that they will soon know a refuah shlema. Today is indeed a very special day. In fact, we might call it the Jacob Ornstein Yom Tov, the festival of Jacob Ornstein. Many of us know that Jacob was scheduled to be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah back in April, and unfortunately that had to be delayed due to the pandemic, but now we're very happy to be here together. And in honor of this being Jacob Ornstein Day, we are going to read a special maftir portion, a special section of the Torah, not the maftir that would normally be read today on Shabbat Bereshit, but a special one taken from the book of Leviticus chapter 8, which just happens to be the portion that Jacob would have read last April. Leviticus chapter 8, and if you're following in the Red Torah commentary, it's on page 798, the end of Parshat Tzav. And for the maftir we call the bar mitzvah Jacob Hirsch Ornstein. Yamod HaMaftir Avram ben Yosef u'Miriam bar mitzvah. Start with the blessing. Start with the blessing.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Olam Ba'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu b'kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Umi peta ohel moed lo teitzvu shivat yamim ad yom elot yemei miluechem Oki shivat yamim yimalei et yetchem kasher ratzah bayom hazeh tziva Adonai laso lechaper lechem. Umifeta ho moed heitzvu yomam v'layla shivat yamim ushmartem bayaz et mishmer Adonai belo tamutu kihain suventi bayaz aharon uvanav ka kola devari asher tiva Adonai Heyad Moshe. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temeh, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Messed up a little bit for tonight.
Now we have a special prayer for the bar mitzvah. Misha berach avotenu Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah u'yivarech et habachur Avram ben Yosef u'Miriam bar mitzvah asher ala l'Torah hayom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishmereu v'yatzileu mikol tzara v'tukah u'mikol nega u'machala yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol maaseh yadav וישם בליבו אהבתו ויראתו ולעשות רצונו ולעובדו בלבב שלם כל הימים ונאמר אמן. מזל טוב.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Siman tov. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Siman tov. Siman tov. Mazel tov. Siman
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Now we'll all stand as the Torah is going to be raised. Sit down with the Torah. You may be seated. We turn now to the Haftorah reading. The day that Jacob was scheduled to be called to the Torah was called, in our tradition, Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Shabbat, and therefore a special Haftorah reading from the writing of the prophet Malachi was the designated portion, and that's what Jacob will be reading. Malachi is the last of the prophets in the whole section of the Bible that's called the prophets, and at the very end of the book of Malachi, he has a kind of messianic prediction where he says the phrase that's also quoted in the Haggadah, the Passover Haggadah, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet on that great and awesome day of the Lord." And that's the portion Jacob will read this morning from Malachi chapter 3, verse 22.
Yep. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'dvim tovim v'retza v'direchem ha'ne'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai chaober b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo Undviei ha'emed v'tzedek.
Amen.
Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi Asher Tziviti Oto V'chorev Hakol Yisrael Ukim Umishpatim Hine Anochi Shuleach Lachem Et Elia Hanavi Lifnei Bo Yom Adonai Hagadol V'hanora V'heshi Le'avod Al Banim B'lev Banim Al Avotam Penavo V'hekiti Et Charetz Cherem Hine Anochi Shuleach Lachem Et Elia Hanavi Lifnei Bo Yom Adonai Hagadol V'hanora. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzorkol halamim Sadiq b'chol darod ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'mover v'oseh ha'medaber u'kayim she'kol devarav emet v'tzedek v'la Torah v'la avodah v'havanim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh she'nata lanu Adonai Eloheinu liktu Shabbat linucha lechavod al tifaret alako. Oh wait. Alako Adonai Elohim and Adonai Eloheinu anach atumodi la umavir him otach yebarach shim habefi kol chai Tamid leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. Blessed to be alive and healthy and surrounded by loved ones in person and via stream. This is one of those rare moments where you pause and look around in awe at the beauty of life. I look at you, Jacob, and my family, and my friends, and my community, and I feel so much love and gratitude. This is an amazing day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at this setting and look at these lovely people dressed up here and ready to celebrate you.
They are dressed.
Yeah, dressed up, you know. You know, in another time and in another place, we could get in a lot of trouble for doing this. For centuries, Jews have been persecuted, driven from their homes, and even killed for performing our ancient rituals. Even as we celebrate this occasion, we must remember the many who have come before us and suffered, so we may have these freedoms. On this day, Jacob, I think of those who have helped shape my Jewish identity, which I hope I've been able to pass along to you to help shape your growing Jewish identity.
I'd say you did a good job.
Some of these people are in the sanctuary today. However, many are no longer with us. I think especially of my father Hirsch. You are named for him, Jacob Hirsch. I'm wearing his talit today that he received as a bar mitzvah more than 60 years ago, as a way to feel close to him and as an outward symbol of my identity. I also think about my grandparents Sigmund and Lynn, Julius and Sophie, and other aunts, uncles, and cousins. I carry their memory with me every day, but especially today because I see so much of them in you. There are many members of Team Jacob I'd like to thank. I first want to thank Dan for all you've done to help plan this day. I'm grateful for this past decade of parenting partnership and communication, and I know that we will continue this way always. I also want to thank Lori for being an awesome and loving stepmom. My mom, Susan, for schlepping him the past 5 years every Wednesday to Hebrew school, sometimes dodging protests, but always providing snacks
Wait, really?
and Nosh Cafe cash. Thank you to Jacob's grandparents, Faye and Marvin, for their contributions as well. I'd also like to thank everyone at Temple Beth Israel who are really responsible for Jacob's Jewish education, Rabbi Weinberg, all of Jacob's Hebrew school teachers, his tutor, Sherry Granite, you are amazing, and a wonderful cheerleader. His volunteer mentor, Susan Zoline, for her work with Jacob on his Dvar Torah, and Amber Wood for her important work putting together the seating logistics for this in-person service during these unprecedented times.
Oh, she's not here.
Really, thank you all for being part of the village, helping to raise my only son. And Jacob, most of all, thank you for being wonderful you. Being your mom is my privilege and pleasure. Lots of parents use this moment to list their child's many accomplishments or to plot a course for their child's life, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have any specific ambitions for you. You have so many gifts. You could do anything, really. But if there's one piece of guidance I could pass along on this momentous occasion, it is this: follow your heart. There is joy in there. There is laughter in there. There is pride in there. There is empathy in there. There's also pain in there. There is worry in there. There is sorrow in there. We cannot avoid pain and sorrow in our lives, and we wouldn't want to avoid them even if we could. Sadness and sorrow are very much a part of being alive and being Jewish. They inspire us to serve our fellow humans and to be each other's keeper. God has given you the sacred ability to feel empathy, to not only feel what others feel, but to make them feel just a little better about themselves. I want to tell you that no matter what you decide to do with your life, it's not so important to set the world on fire, but rather to kindle love in people's hearts and be a force for good in this world. We are so proud of you, Jacob, for all you have accomplished. I'm sorry. For your creativity, your character, and your kindness, and we can't wait to see what your future holds. I love you. Thank you.
6 feet, brother.
I'm actually your son.
Okay, I got it. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
To everyone here in person and everyone joining us across the country via live stream, welcome on behalf of Jacob, Michelle, Lori, and myself. Thank you for being part of this very special day. I also want to say thank you to a few people without whom this day would not be possible. First, Michelle. Thank you for being an amazing mother to Jacob. and an incredible co-parenting partner. And thank you for all the work you've done to get us to this day. Lori, thank you. You've been there for me, and more importantly for Jacob, during the highest of highs and lowest of lows in this interesting bar mitzvah saga. You're the source of strength, patience, calm, and love. Lori Sagrin, thank you for helping shepherd our not-so-little lamb through all the trials and tribulations of Hebrew school and the stresses of becoming a bar mitzvah.
It is stressful.
Susan Zoline, thank you for being such a great mentor to Jacob. Working with you truly brought everything that Jacob was learning into perspective. Susan Lotman, thank you for all the Wednesday afternoon rides, getting Jacob to Hebrew school on time, and as ready as a preteen can ever be after a long day of school. To my parents, Faye and Marvin Ruback, thank you for being a source of Jacob's love in Judaism, and for all of your unconditional love and support for Jacob. Now, Jacob,
Yes.
first I want to say Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
Your mom, Lori, and I are all very, very proud of you. A lot of kids wait anxiously for their bar mitzvah date in normal times. But these are extraordinary times, and your wait to get here was anything but ordinary. The grace, patience, perseverance you have shown in the 6 months before what was supposed to be your bar mitzvah date, and today, is nothing short of astounding. But that should not surprise anyone, my son, because you are nothing short of astounding. The late, great Robin Williams once said,
Oh, nice.
everyone has these two visions when they hold their child for the first time. The first is their child as an adult saying, I'd like to thank the Nobel Academy for this award. The second is their child as an adult saying, you want fries with that? While these are absurd extremes from a brilliantly absurd man, there is no question where on that scale you are headed. You may not know it yet, but you are headed for great accomplishments in your life. I just know it. As I was sitting down to write this speech, Jacob, I had an idea of the theme of what I wanted to talk about, but the actual words escaped me. I thought and could not bring my fingers to the keyboard because I did not know exactly what it was I wanted to say. Then, as I forced myself to sit down and type, because, TikTok, it hit me. There was a poem that I learned my freshman year in college. And right now, all of my fraternity brothers on the live stream are rolling their eyes. I am sure some here in the sanctuary today have heard me recite it, and I know many of the people watching on the live stream have heard me recite it. It's called The Bridge Builder. It was originally written by Will Allen Dromgoole in the early 1900s. And Jacob, if you will indulge me for just a minute, I want you to listen carefully to these words. An old man going a lone highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm vast and deep and wide. The old man crossed in twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him. But he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again shall pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old, gray head. Good friend, in this path I have come, he said. There followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. Okay, right now, Jacob, I know you're thinking to yourself, did my father really just quote 1900s poetry at my bar mitzvah? Well, what does this have to do with me? What does it have to do with my bar mitzvah? Well, since you silently ask that, you, my son, are a bridge builder. Your compassion for others, your sense of justice, your almost insatiable need to make other people's lives better and just a little bit easier, all bridge building qualities. I have to only look at the love and leadership you have shown to your Ruthie and Johnny, your 4-year-old brother and sister. I know you can get frustrated and annoyed with them, but you constantly show them how to be good people, and they look up to you so much and try to emulate your bridge building qualities. Continue to hone those, Jake. Continue to hone those, my son. Never lose those qualities because they make you who you are. And who you are is amazing. I'll venture to guess that there's not a single person here watching the live stream or a single person here in the sanctuary who hasn't been touched in some profound and personal way by the kindness and empathy of Jacob. Your Parsha spoke of the rules and regulations surrounding burnt offerings, sacrifices. I would also guess there will never be a person who comes into your life for whom you wouldn't make some sort of sacrifice, some big, some small, to make their lives just a little bit better. It's just who you are. And I love you for so many reasons, but especially for that one. There's an old saying that parents have succeeded if their child, when grown, is a better person than they are. Jacob, you're already 13, and you're already a much better man than I. So I'll begin this as I end. I will end this as I begin. Strike that, reverse it. Mazel tov, Jacob. Lori and I are so proud of you. Your mom is so proud of you. Your Nana and Papa are so proud of you. Your Nanny and Pappy are watching from their live stream in heaven, and they are proud of you. We are all proud of you, not just for what you've accomplished today, but for the mensch, the bridge builder that you have become. I love you.
Friends, we turn back to our prayer books now. We turn to page 261, page 261, and as we prepare to return the Torah to the ark, let us rise. Give it to Jacob. According to our calendar, the new month of Cheshvan begins on this coming Sunday and Monday. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elokei Avoteinu v'Imotenu shetechadesh aleinu et chodesh haba l'tova v'livracha v'titen lanu chayim arukim chayim shel shalom chayim shel parnasa chayim shetehei banu ahavat Torah v'yirat shamayim chayim sheyimale mishalot libenu l'tova Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan yeh v'yom rishon v'yom sheni habaim aleinu l'tova. Now we turn to page 256. Page 256. You can open the book for him. Top of the page.
Okay.
Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted.
Jacob, we have waited a long time to get here.
We sure have.
And I'm not just talking about 6 months from last April. You know, ever since you were a little boy, those of us who know you and have watched you grown up have been excited to be able to celebrate this day with you. And it turns out that even though our initial inclination was to be disappointed about the delay from April until now and about the difference, but it turns out there's actually a lesson that comes to us by the contrast or by the dual messages and lessons that we get from the Torah portion from last April and the Torah portion from today. The Torah portion in April was from the book of Leviticus and talked a lot about rules and laws and how to do everything exactly the right way and not to deviate from the left or the right. And the Haftarah portion also says, Zichru Torat Moshe. Remember the instructions of Moses and follow them exactly. And then the Torah portion of this Shabbat is called Bereshit, which means creation, creativity, innovation, ad-libbing, something you know a lot about. And so there is this tension that comes to us in the message of the two different Torah portions that I think is a tension in life as well. That there are times in life when what's called for is following the rules and making sure that we do things the way they are supposed to be done. And there are other moments and times in life when what's called for is the opportunity to be creative, individualistic, and to bring something of ourselves to what would otherwise just be an ordinary moment. That's, I think, what happened today as well. Here we have our regular Shabbat service, which goes according to the order of the prayer book, which is called a Sidur, from the word Seder, which means order. And we did everything just the way we're supposed to do it. And yet, infused into that fixed, organized, predictable order is the individuality and creativity of you becoming a bar mitzvah. That makes us very proud of you. I want to say one more thing, and that is that the Haftarah portion, in talking about Elijah the prophet, talking about the end of time, suggests to us that there is a kind of coherence that we read today, the beginning of time and the end of time, and we read about having rules and order in our life, and also having individuality, personality, and creativity in our lives. All those things, as those of us who know you know, all those things come together in you. You are a person who likes to know what the rules are, and likes to know what you're supposed to do, and what's the right thing to do, and you're also a person who likes to be creative and individualistic and bring your own special something to almost everything you do. And that's what makes us particularly proud, not just of what you have done today, but of who you have become. And in addition to being proud, we're also exceedingly hopeful about who you will yet become. And it's that sense of pride and that sense of hope that I combine together into the ancient words of priestly blessing. I'm going to ask you please to stand up. And I'm going to ask your parents to be my agents and put their hands on your head as I say to you these words of blessing. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine on you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face always be turned towards you, and may you always be granted peace. Amen. Now, before you sit down, I have a few gifts to present to you on behalf of the congregation and on behalf of our sisterhood and our brotherhood. The first thing I have that's there is a certificate which you have signed along with your parents and representatives of the congregation. And that certificate testifies to the fact that in becoming a bar mitzvah, Jacob Hirsch Ornstein has accepted the privileges and responsibilities of being a Jew. Lifelong Torah study and the keeping of mitzvot, Shabbat, holy day and life cycle observances, participation in the life of the synagogue, the Jewish community, and Israel, dedication to Tikkun Olam, the perfection of our world. We also have for you as a gift your own Machzor, copies of Mishkan HaNefesh, our holiday prayer book, which you will be able to use every year from now on as you participate as an adult member of the congregation. From Sisterhood Temple Beth Israel, we have for you a Kiddush cup, which is engraved with your monogram and the date. You don't have to pick it up now, but you're going to use it for the very first time at the end of our service today when you make Kiddush. From Brotherhood, we have a picture frame engraved with your name and the date. And as a placeholder, until you get a chance to put your bar mitzvah photos into that picture frame, Brotherhood has placed a certificate which testifies to the fact that a tree has been planted in Israel in your honor. And we also have some certificates that will allow you to go and visit your tree. Certificates which will be good, 3 of them as a matter of fact, one from the Jewish United Fund of Metropolitan Chicago, one from NIFTY, the North American Federation of Temple Youth, our national reform movement, and the third one from Temple Beth Israel for $500, good towards a high school summer or semester trip to Israel. So start packing, you'll be able to go visit your tree. So mazel tov to you. You can have a seat and take all those gifts home when you go. Friends, now we're going to return to our prayer books. We're going to turn to page 258, and I'm going to call upon Jacob's TBI mentor, Susan Zolene, to read the prayer for our country at the bottom of page 258. Susan?
Screen sharing?
Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
I need screen sharing.
No, you can just read.
I need screen sharing. How about, okay.
I hope you like the popcorn.
So sorry. Mazel tov Jacob, a prayer for our country. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the carrots of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your own king. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech. If you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
We join on the next page with a prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Again alea be'avrat chasdecha, ufros alea sukat shlomecha. Ushlach orcha v'amitcha lerashea, sarea v'yoatzea. ותקנים בעצה טובה מלפניך, ונתת שלום בארץ ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you all for coming to share this day with me. Whether in person or over the internet. I would like to tell you what it means to me to become a bar mitzvah. It's a gateway and celebration of Jewish adulthood. I'm glad to be here not only because my religion expects me to, but also be. I lost my place. Not only because my religion expects me to be here, but also because I choose to be here. I definitely could have if I had wanted to not belong to a temple, not gone to Hebrew school, and never touched the Torah. But yet, here I am. In the presence of my friends and family, reading the words of Torah. Why did I choose to challenge myself with more responsibility from all the other ones I already have? If I had a choice, why didn't I take the easy way out? Well, I just wanted to. My parents did not force me to do any of this. In fact, my parents were debating on whether to send me to Hebrew school. What made up their mind? I overheard and asked what they were talking about. My mom then told me they weren't sure if they wanted to send me to Hebrew school. And I said, "Are you kidding? I'm Jewish. Why wouldn't I?" There'd be a laugh there. Now I want to address that being Jewish is not easy. In fact, it's pretty hard. As I've learned in school and in real life, society isn't always a fan of people that are different. If you're not in the majority of something, people will not always treat you with the respect you deserve. And being Jewish is no different. Less than 2% of America's population is Jewish. And the only reason that America's Jewish population is as big as it is because of World War II. A lot of Jews fled Hitler and fled the Nazi countries to come to America. My great-grandmother was one of those Jews. She was originally born in a small village in Czechoslovakia. You may now know it as the Czech Republic. She and my great-grandfather happened to live in the same village and were friends. Then my great-grandmother and her family were taken to a concentration camp. Then her parents were taken to a gas chamber and were killed. When World War II was over, my great-grandmother moved back to Czechoslovakia. When she came back, she didn't have anyone but her friend, my great-grandfather. They then wound up getting married. Then Czechoslovakia wasn't exactly becoming very open to the number of Jews in the country, so they decided to come to America. They had my grandmother, and the rest is family stories. I believe that if we learn about the past, we can make the future great. That's why we study Torah. Okay, in my portion, Moses had just gone back from Mount Sinai, the second time. And luckily, the Israelites were not idolizing a golden calf, so Moses could explain what God had just given to him and the Israelites. Now, Moses went into great detail, specifying everything. He talks about rules and regulations and how to make burnt offerings. After that, he gives an orientation to Aaron and his sons to be Jewish priests and to take care of the sacrificial cult. They learn how to make all the burnt offerings in the ancient Mishkan. Now, why is this important? Well, we make burnt offerings pretty regularly. Have you ever walked down Michigan Avenue and given a homeless person a little money to hopefully help them? That's like a burnt offering. Say you gave them $5. Now, $5 may be practically no dent in your financial savings, but to someone who has nothing, sacrificing a little bit of what we have to give someone who has nothing something is pretty notable. And while we're on the topic of the homeless, let's talk about my mitzvah project. Before I even started my bar mitzvah prep, I knew I wanted to help the homeless for my mitzvah project. No problem ever stuck out to me more than people that have to live on the streets and beg for money and practically starve. So then it was 6th grade, and we were researching charities to donate our class tzedakah money to, and we'd present and vote. While I was researching, I found a nice little charity right here in Chicago called Sarah's Circle. It's an organization that collects money and in-kind donations, and even shelters homeless women. We didn't wind up donating our Kasadaka to Sarah's Circle, but we did wind up donating to Water for South Sudan, which was just as good of an organization. But my parents and I, on our own, raised over $1,500 for Sarah's Circle, which is probably more than the money we raised for our Klasadaka combined. In conclusion, what does it mean to be a bar mitzvah? What does it mean to be a bar mitzvah? I know I asked this question at the very beginning of the speech, but I want to tack on one more thing to it. Sorry about the tapping. It's an orientation for Jewish life and ensures the same for generations to come. Many people have helped me get ready for today, and I'd actually like to thank some of them. First, I would like to thank Rabbi Weinberg for helping me get through the service and all in all being a good guy. My mother and father, first of all, thank you for giving birth to me. Also, thanks for having my back for over 13 years. Thanks also to my stepmom, Lori. Although I did not chill in your womb, you have also had my back for more than 9 years now. Thank you, Susan Zoline, my TDI mentor. You played a huge role in helping me understand what I was reading so I could explain it to everyone. You're welcome. Also, my grandma Susan. Sue. Inside joke. You are a person who has had my back and one of the sweetest, nicest, and at times pretty funny people I've ever met. Also, thank you, Nana and Papa. Every time I see you guys, it's the highlight of my day. Also, to the rest of my family. You guys may be a little crazy, but I know you always have my back. Oh, hi, Ruthie. I'd also like to thank all my friends. Some of my best memories are with you guys. Now there are some people who are no longer living that I'd like to thank. My nanny and pappy. They were my great-grandparents, the one from the story. They were Holocaust survivors, and that in and of itself is worth acknowledging. Also, let me tell you something about my great-grandmother. She was awesome. She was always nice, even in rough times. She was sweet and brave. And finally, my Grandpa Hirsch. For all you who don't know, and also my mother explained it, but my full name is Jacob Hirsch Orenstein. My middle name was named after my Grandpa Hirsch. I sadly never got to meet him. He died of cancer in 2002. He was a hardcore sports fan and loved the White Sox and Bears to death. So it's really sad he never got to see the White Sox win the World Series in 2005, or the Bears' 2018 season. Maybe it was good he missed Cody Parkey's double leg, though. No, not a lot of sports fans. They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Today is a really big step in my journey to reach Jewish adulthood, so we can all celebrate and look back at what we've all come. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. You can have a seat. Thank you, Jacob. Once again, you've demonstrated that you have your own unique style, which is an inspiration to all of us. Mazel tov. Friends, we turn back to our prayer books now, to the concluding portion of our worship. We turn to Aleinu at the bottom of page 282. Page 282. Let us rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'chol, l'titnu l'leoter bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzon, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kefol ha'monam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim.
page 295. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha. We call to mind now those whose yard sites are observed on this Shabbat. Ben Altman, Michelle Behrens, Mandel Berman, Sarah Burnfield, Ruth Blaine, Yetta Caslow, Joseph T. D'Amato, Irene Friedlieb, Charles W. Friedman, Ida K. Friedman, Ella Froman, Edward David Garber, Ronald Giffen, Mindell Goodfriend, Julian Goodfriend, Rabbi Paul Goodman, Charles Grossman, Sidney Hotowski, Robert E. Heeman, Sonia Cart, Darlene Kaufman, Eugene Kirschner, Irving Cohn, Albert A. Connick, David Korn, Julius Korn, Renee Levy, Rosalind C. Levy, Rose G. Lizdowski, Nathan H. Malkus, Jean Melnick, Jacob Miller, Jerry Mork, Fanny Morris, Molly Moses, Minette E. Austin, Benjamin D. Plotkin, Dr. Harry I. Powell, Leah Rockland, Dr. Henry H. Rubin, Phyllis Sandler, Jerry Schlocker, Louis Schutz, Bernard Siegel, Abe Starr, Olga Stern, Bessie Sussman, Helen Tennant, Michael H. Trapper, Anna Wilma, Ben M. Zeff. To these thus named, we add memories of dear ones not now mentioned by name, but cherished in their mourners' hearts, as all those who mourn now stand for Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon v'yomeichon v'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam le'omei olmaya, yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'al v'yitramam v'yitnaser, yitzabar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei b'kudsha b'richu, elam kol b'yichata v'shiata, shmishpachata v'nechamata, damiram v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shelam oralim shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'nonav, v'yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Shabbat Shalom. In just a moment, we're going to conclude our worship by making Kiddush here in the sanctuary. And then we're going to ask you to stay in your seats until the usher comes around and dismisses you so that we don't end up with a bottleneck of people in the doorway at the exit of the sanctuary. And Jacob, you're going to take your Kiddush cup and stand. And Marla will lead us in Kiddush.
Shabbat Shabbat vayikadsheu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'riat ha'afen.
Amen. Shabbat shalom and mazel tov.